Voters. It is good evening and welcome. My name is Laura Milner and I'm the chair of voter services for the Kittitas County League of Women Voters. It's my pleasure tonight to welcome you on behalf of the League, as well as the Ellensburg Daily Record, the Northern Kittitas County Tribune, the Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce, and the Associated Students of Central Washington University to the Kittitas County Coroners Forum. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the League's production and post-production crew, Charlie Sorensen, Karen Raymond, and Dolores Irwin, for making this evening possible. Kittitas County League, a nonprofit in existence for over 50 years, has presented candidates nights to help educate county voters since 1980. We are a nonpartisan grassroots organization that never supports or opposes individual candidates or political parties. Our goal in hosting these events is to educate voters about candidates and their positions as they stand for election, because informed voters do make a difference. The League of Women Voters records and retains a full unedited copy of all candidates' forms. If any portion of a League form is redistributed out of context to make a candidate appear to say something they did not say, or are edited to make a candidate look bad in any way they did not actually look at the original form, then the League of Women Voters will alert the media, provide the unedited video for comparison, and file appropriate complaints with any applicable governing authority. Tonight's forum will focus on candidates running for the Kittitas County Coroner's Office. The practice for the Kittitas League to hold candidate forums is as follows. Every candidate running in a contested election for any particular position is invited to participate in a League of Women Voters candidate forum. They are contacted via email and, if necessary, certified mail delivery. We vigorously pursue candidates, confirm their availability, source questions from the community, promote the event, and stage the event. If both candidates agree to participate, but only one candidate shows, that candidate will be allowed to make a 2-minute statement. No surrogates will be permitted to read statements or appear on behalf of the candidate. Be aware that League takes candidates and forums quite seriously. Local, state, national League rules dictate that candidates for each position must be at the candidate event. Otherwise, it can appear partisan. When we have unresponsive candidates, the community, the voters, and our democracy loses. The two candidates that are running for Kittitas County Coroner and have graciously agreed to appear here are Nicholas Henderson and Deborah A. Robinson. Be aware that due to technical difficulties, Mr. Henderson, is appearing via telephone, and there will be no camera for him. Therefore, it will somewhat be awkward at sometimes when I have to remind him of how many seconds that he has left, since he can't see the timer in order to conclude his comments. As we begin, I want to note that our ballots will be mailed October 18th. Please call the auditor's office if you don't receive yours in a timely manner after October 18th. You still have time to register or change your address. You can do so online until October 31st and in person at the auditor's office or at CWU's Engagement Hub by 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November the 8th. Your ballot must be postmarked on or before November 8th by 8 p.m. And be aware that local post offices have varying closing times, so mailing by October 26th is probably a voter's best bet. There are also 9 drop boxes throughout Kittitas County. If you are unsure where yours is, do check the auditor's office website for the complete list. In addition to this live stream event, the recording will be on the Kittitas YouTube channel with links found at kittitasleague.org. We thank the following media partners for also sharing these forums: ECTV, Spectrum Channel 191, Ellensburg Daily Record, and Northern Kittitas County Tribune. Tonight's forum structure. We have discussed the ground rules for the forum with the candidates prior to today's event. My job is to keep us on time and on task, which means that if a candidate goes past their time, I will move us along. The candidates have the opportunity to make a 2-minute opening statement. Then we will ask 5 prepared questions that we source from the community. We provided these questions to the candidates a few hours ago, and they will have 60 to 90 seconds, depending on the question complexity, to respond to each question. Then we will move up to 3 audience questions, depending on time availability. The candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to each of these questions. The forum will conclude with a 60-second closing statement by each candidate. Should an opponent wish to rebut the response, they must signal they wish to do so. Once recognized, they shall have 30 seconds. Only one rebuttal per question will be permitted. We will rotate the order that the questions are asked, so no candidate always appears first. If I make an error in this regard, I hope the candidates will remind me. If you're viewing this live, you can submit a question by texting to 509-654-9030, which appears on our screen. The questions must be for all candidates. League members will review the questions. We may combine or edit them for clarity, nonpartisanship, and time limitations. Our nonpartisan General Voters Guide will go live on the website today, October 17th. The guide includes links to candidates' campaign websites, if they provided them, financial filings, completed candidates, League of Women Voter questionnaires, and more. We urge you to check it out and to share it with other voters. At this point, we would like to welcome candidates Nicholas Henderson and Deborah A. Robinson to this forum. Thank you both for taking the time to be with us, and thank you for your willingness to serve our community as a coroner. As we discussed earlier, I will alternate who answers first, but we start with how candidates appear on the ballot. So therefore, Mr. Henderson, we start with you. You have 2 minutes for your opening statement. And remember, I may have to interrupt you since you can't see the timer.
That's okay. I'd like to thank the League for this opportunity to speak with the voters of Kittitas County. This is going to be my 3rd term as your county coroner. I first ran when they opened the position 8 years ago. With my experience in the funeral business and my experience with Marin County Coroner's office in Marin County, California, I thought I had some experience and would make a good coroner. I started this job from literally nothing. The coroner's office was run through the prosecutor's office, which is a state law through the state constitution that if your county is under 40,000 people, your prosecutor is your coroner. And then once you hit 40,000 or above, you have to elect a coroner. So I'm the first elected coroner. I've grown the department since I started it, and continue to grow it as the county grows. I have gotten the department and my deputies all certified through the state and national certifications. I push them all the time to get updated training, which we do on a monthly basis on the internet, and go to seminars live. I feel I have a very good reputation in the county and would love to continue as your county coroner. I am running as a 3rd term because there are some things I would like to get finished with the growth of the county. I would like to get a full coroner's administrative office and autopsy facility built for the county. And I think I need another term to get that accomplished. That's fairly complex. And right now we're working on getting some more pathologists into the state. We're at a critical point of pathologist shortages to do the autopsies.
Mr. Henderson, you have 5 seconds.
And we're literally running all over the state to accomplish that. So that's my brief goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson, you have 2 minutes to make your opening statement.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank the League for inviting me to this forum. The coroner's office is one that most people don't think about until something tragic happens to you, your family, or your friends. My husband and I lost a child, so we know firsthand the importance of the process. One that shows passion, accuracy, transparency. Grief, it's a lifelong journey. It's personal and it's gut-wrenching. Trauma is an acute wound. It's an emotional wound that can bring people to their knees. A little bit about me. I have a degree in criminal justice, And since 2005, I've been teaching pediatric death investigations at the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission. In fact, my opponent, Nick, has taken our class. I'm a member of the International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners. I've been a past member of the Washington State Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs and the National Association of Medical Examiners. I've been a death investigator for 27 years. In full disclosure, most of the time I've been a thorn in the side of the coroners because I hold them accountable to do a good quality job. I've trained over 7,000 first responders on pediatric death investigations. I was a Marine. I got out of the Marine Corps and was a deputy sheriff, was going to school. Thought I was on my way to law school when in 1991, when I was doing a project for the Washington State Bar Association, I came back from a run and found my third son dead in his crib. Well, that changed our life. I did go back to school. I went to St. Louis School of Medicine, took the basic medical legal death investigator course, went on to take the master's course. I've been executive director for nonprofits. I'm published in the Journal of Forensic Sciences, Cambridge Press. I've worked with national and international researchers. And
Ms. Robinson, we're going to have to cut you off.
And just about every coroner in our state. So thank you.
All right. But just to let you know, you get the next question. So here we go.
Oh, okay.
Please define the duties of a county coroner and how you best meet those requirements.
Okay. Can I read I did prepare a little statement to that one. Okay. The county coroner is the elected official that's tasked with overseeing the medical legal system of our county. The medical legal system is a unique confluence of investigative and medical skills. The coroner is responsible for the final culmination of both the investigative and medical side of death investigations for all deaths that are sudden and unexpected in their jurisdiction. I think that I fulfill that role. My education, along with my experience, has put me in a unique position to not only know what a coroner's office is supposed to function as, but I've had the opportunity to view many coroner and medical examiners' offices, not only in our state, but from around the country.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson, you also have 60 seconds to answer the question. Please define the duties of a county coroner and how best you meet those requirements.
The duties of the county coroner investigate all sudden and unexpected deaths in the county, come up with a cause of death and a manner of death. And I think with my experience in Marin County, California, with the county coroner's office down there, and my experience as a funeral director for over 17 years, every funeral home I worked for was the agent for the coroner. So I've been around, I don't know, countless autopsies and investigations. And I think with my understanding of grief through the funeral business and in the coroner business, I'm the best qualified for the job.
Thank you.
Can I just say something?
Yes, you have a rebuttal of 30 seconds.
So I think it's really important that people understand the difference between mortuary science and forensic science. It's very clear that my opponent, for the last 8 years, because of his experience, he's gone the track of mortuary science. My lens is much different. My background is a lot different. And I view this through the lens of forensic sciences and all that entails.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson, you will have 90 seconds to answer the following question. Describe your process for documenting manner of death and communicating, assisting family members and friends dealing with the trauma of that death.
The documenting, that would be when you get to the scene, I think the first thing to do is overlook the scene. Everybody seems they want to get excited about getting to the body. Leave the body alone. It's not going to go anywhere. Check and see what's been moved around the scene, where things are, what doesn't look normal. start taking your photographs from a distance, working your way into the scene, and then investigate the body, what marks are on the body, what is around the body, that type of thing is the way you want to make sure you get all that documented. And then as far as assisting family and friends, that the families always get or have a right to ask for a copy of the coroner's report and the autopsy report, toxicology, all our reports. We provide that to the family when we get them finished. And there are times they'll come into the office and talk, and they don't know what to do. And there's really, until you walk in those shoes, there's no way to know what to do. So I do more listening than anything else to them, giving somebody to talk to and tell them how great tell me how great their loved one was and what a good guy he was or gal, and sometimes I can recommend to different therapists and mental health specialists in the community, here's someone to call, and I ask them if they'd like me to call anybody at the scene. Do you have a minister you want me to call? Do you want me to call a
Mr.
chaplain?
Henderson, I'm afraid your time is up on that question.
Okay.
Ms. Robinson, you have 90 seconds to answer, to describe your process for documenting manner of death and communicating, assisting family members and friends dealing with the trauma of that death.
Okay. Well, in order to investigate the manner of death, the county coroner has the authority to properly carry out their job, such as subpoena powers. We are exempt from HIPAA, which is a great investigative tool for medical records and information. And after gathering the investigative materials, a coroner may determine that the manner of death was natural, accidental, homicidal, suicidal, or it's pending. What is the difference between a coroner and medical examiner? Typically, the role of the medical examiner is appointed and it's not elected. And then unlike the county coroner, the medical examiner is a physician, typically a board certified forensic pathologist. Nick already alluded to the shortage of forensic pathologists in our state. The county coroner investigates deaths to determine two factors: cause of death and the medical, if it was medical in nature, and they need to be aided by a forensic pathologist investigation. And that would include autopsies, toxicology, microtesting. The forensic pathologist only determines the medical cause of death and not the manner and the mechanism of death. That's the coroner's responsibility. Manner and mechanism of death investigations may include field work, such as blood draws for testing, collecting decomposition samples, and investigating other factors, as well as coordinating with law enforcement, doctors, families, witnesses.
And there you go.
And there we go.
And there you go. All right, Ms. Robinson, you will start this round. You have 60 seconds. What is the most pressing need in the coroner's office, and how would you address it?
Oh, okay. So you're going to hear me call 2025 the magical bewitching hour, because in 2025, all bets are off and the laws change. RCW 121 goes into effect. It really changes how we do things. And without our office being accredited, which to Nick's credit, in February of this year, he did submit his paperwork for accreditation. However, I suggested to Nick 7 years ago that he should submit his accreditation. It can take years to get accredited, an office to be accredited, and no one will accredit an office when there's a funeral home that autopsies are performed in. If we're not accredited, we lose state and federal funding. And that's the biggest thing. And all that entails with accreditation for our county, from a facility to personnel.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson, you have the same question. 60 seconds. What is the most pressing need in the coroner's office, and how would you address it?
The most pressing need right now is a forensic pathologist. We're on our way to being accredited. In fact, the only thing we're waiting on is the appointment when the auditor is going to come out and accredit the funeral homes in town that we use as morgues. but we have a terrible, terrible shortage of forensic pathologists. And that is a real problem. When I started, we had 3 that would travel from the west side to the east side of the mountains. Now we are down to 1. And that makes a real problem when it comes time to trying to schedule autopsies. I like to try to get them done as soon as possible so the body can be released to the family and they can go on about their wishes for memorialization or funerals, whatever they're trying to do. We are working on accreditation. When we have a new employee, we start them off right off the bat, getting their hours in to make the accreditation and getting their training in. The biggest pressing issue is the pathologist, and I am working with the Washington Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners, and we were working with the legislature to try to get some more money budgeted.
Mr. Henderson. All right. So
yes.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
We're going to start with you for this next question, however, which you'll have 60 seconds to respond to. Describe what educational opportunities you have or would create for the public, focusing on the safety and welfare of Washington State residents.
We have a system of internships that we have been working for a couple of years with Central Washington University in their forensics department and anthropology and archaeology departments. We currently have 4 interns working with us, and they go out on scene investigations. They attend autopsies. We attend job fairs at Central and it's an amazing amount of interest that we're having with the students at Central. We also have PowerPoint programs we've put together to go out to schools and any service club that would want it to explain what we do as the coroner and what the educational and job opportunities are. So that is where we're at on that.
Thank you. Ms. Robinson, you have 60 seconds to answer. Describe what educational opportunities you have or would create for the public, focusing on the safety and welfare of Washington State residents.
Well, I'm a data-driven person. So the first thing that I would like to see us do is implement injury prevention strategies. We have a world premiere, there are 7 world premier injury prevention centers in the world, and we have one in Seattle in our own backyard. And they have already done the work for us, and they have a whole series of evidence-based injury prevention mechanisms, from seatbelt safety to window falls to drug overdose to youth suicide. There's a whole gamut. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have the technical expertise to connect the dots. I teach a class at the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission on pediatric death investigations. We need to collaborate more. For the first time, the CJTC has hired a full-time program manager just for coroners and medical examiners.
Thank you. For our 5th and final question, before we go to live stream audience questions, Ms. Robinson, we begin with you. You will have 60 seconds. And the question is, describe the different agencies the coroner's office must deal with and how you have or would address those relationships to improve processes, policies, and procedures.
Well, the coroner's office is unique in that it has a foot in both public safety and public health. The Office of the Coroner, I would first want to meet with our law enforcement representatives. I strongly believe that we need to tighten up our chain of custody. And just to go back to what Mr. Henderson and I did just confirm with the International Association of Coroners and Medical Examiners that they do not accreditate an office who utilizes funeral homes. So that's going to be a hiccup for us, I believe. The other people that we collaborate with are other counties and other medical examiners offices. We have a huge disparity. We have no forensic pathologists. I've worked with our forensic pathologists for decades. We need to create a regional forensic center that we're looking at these and that we utilize everybody's resources and maximize them.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson, the same question to you for 60 seconds. Describe the different agencies the coroner's office must deal with and how you have or would address those relationships to improve processes, policies, and procedures.
Well, we deal with all law enforcement agencies. The local ones, which are our local police and the state patrol detachment and our county sheriff, are the ones we are most common with. But I've also dealt with ICE and the FBI. Those are a little more far-reaching. You don't have the relationship you do with the local law enforcement. We also deal with the medical association. We deal with the health department, and because we report to them if there's any contagious diseases that we are finding in our work, so they have a heads up, and we meet with them. Here's we explain how we'd like to have things done at the scene and what can be touched and can't be touched, and we invite them to come down and follow us through the autopsy procedures and see what we do with exchanging evidence between each other. We deal with the courts. We get subpoenaed from time to time to testify in court on deaths and legal cases.
Mr. Henderson, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, we have been collecting questions from our YouTube audience. I want to remind you that we only have time for up to 3 questions. Our volunteers may have combined or reworded the questions to maintain nonpartisanship or for clarity. If we do not get to your question, remember, you can always reach out to the candidates via email and ask them directly. Okay, Mr. Henderson, you will have this first question. You will have 90 seconds. The question is, what are your qualifications for determining the difference between a natural and unnatural death?
My qualifications?
Yes, let me read it to you again. What are your qualifications for determining the difference between a natural and unnatural death?
My experience, my training at seminars that I've gone to, and the situation that you're in, that's kind of a broad question. And then I will call in a pathologist if there's something that doesn't look right to me and I can't quite figure out exactly what has happened. We'll have, sometimes there'll be a person that will collapse in their house or in their yard or wherever just for no reason, just go down. You can't tell if that is a natural cause, or did they take some kind of poison and commit suicide, or did somebody slip them something, and is it a homicide? And so you need to have the pathologist come in and take care of the autopsy and toxicology for that kind of stuff. That's what will determine those things. And so my experience, I've been in the mortuary business and responding to coroner calls since 1975. So I've been out. I don't know what I haven't seen. And that experience, I think, is the best teacher in the world. That's better than any textbook could ever be.
All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Ms. Robinson, over to you for 90 seconds. And the question to repeat is, what are your qualifications for determining the difference between a natural and unnatural death?
All right, so you really aren't going to be able to determine an unnatural versus a natural death unless you have a full postmortem examination. And Nick alluded to that earlier in his response, that when you have a sudden and unexpected death, there's many things that can happen. And it's really sort of a diagnosis of exclusion. A gunshot wound or a traffic accident, those are much easier to investigate because you sort of have a mechanism of death. What we're trying to do is get very creative with how we conduct these scene investigations. Because the lack of forensic pathologists, we're working on bringing the pathologist to the scene remotely. We're trying to take what we learned from COVID, for instance, and bring that pathologist. We have 2 who travel over here. And maybe what we need to be doing is utilizing our technology a little bit better, like we do with medicine, and we can start using telemed more. And we have that as part of our case history, so that we're bringing the most expensive component of that investigation is that autopsy. If we can bring that forensic pathologist out to the scene, it's much better. Then they can make that determination. Do I need to open this body up, or can we just do a visual on it?
Thank you. Ms. Robinson, you begin with the next question, 90 seconds. And the question is, it's a 2-parter.
Oh.
What types of deaths are coroners required to investigate? And do any of these types of deaths mean there is a requirement for an autopsy?
Yes. The coroner should investigate any death that is sudden and unexpected, that is not an anticipated death or under the jurisdiction or the care of another physician. And the second part, what was the second part to that one again?
The second part is, do any of these types of deaths mean there is a requirement for an autopsy?
Yes, not all deaths require autopsies. Remember that. There are some statutory requirements for autopsies. Homicides, infant deaths, anything that's sudden and unexpected that is not under a physician's care, where you have no external cause of death, that body needs to be opened. We are only autopsying 4% of our total deaths. Part of that is a budgetary issue, part of that is a pathology issue. So I think the more we can think globally and more regionally for the services for the county, the better. Again, going back to 2025, one of the things that the new RCW 121 will allow is for, in some counties, coroners can be appointed by their county commissioners, and they can also cross jurisdiction from county to county and cooperate more. Maybe investigators from Yakima and Kittitas, we share a region in our counties. Maybe we pool on each other's resources. Yakima has a morgue, we don't. So those are just some of the things that we have to be ready to pivot by 2025.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Henderson, your turn. It's 90 seconds to answer this question. It's 2 parts. I can reread both parts if you need. What types of deaths are coroners required to investigate? And do any of these types of deaths mean there is a requirement for an autopsy?
The deaths, as she said, the deaths are any unexpected sudden death that isn't under the care of a doctor, such as accidents, anything with a crime, things like that. There is nothing that absolutely says, by law, you will do an autopsy on this. The coroner can say yes or no to autopsies. We do that, and we've done it here. We had a hiking accident, and the pathologist was having a hard time getting his schedule to get over here. We have an x-ray machine that we got through a grant. We x-rayed the body and saw that he had a severed cervical spine in the x-ray. It sort of looked that way when you just look at the person's neck, the way it was off-shaped, but the x-ray confirmed it. And so there was no reason to do an autopsy once we saw that. Same with an auto accident we had where the person had a severely fractured skull, and the x-rays showed that. So not everybody gets an autopsy. And there's nothing that says you have to. I will always autopsy a homicide. Always, and I will always autopsy a child that has died unexpectedly, to make sure nothing gets slipped between the cracks.
All right, here we are to our final question, and we
Well,
begin
I
with
just
a
have
rebuttal. You have 30
a
seconds.
little rebuttal for that one. We do have statutory requirements, and I can give you the RCW if you want. Any violent death that's sudden and unusual, unattended by a physician in the last 20 days, unidentified individual, something that's related to an accident or injury, homicide, suicide, or accidental due to criminal acts or due to sudden infant death syndrome. Those are what the statutes call out.
Thank you for that clarification. All right. Okay, Mr. Henderson, final question,
Yeah.
90 seconds. Because of the importance of taking care of families that have experienced death, how many death investigations have you performed?
Oh, boy. I don't have a clue. Well, I'd have to go back through the records and do some counting on that. Hundreds. I don't have a clue. I've done many of everything from drug overdoses to suicides by hanging to homicides, car accidents, industrial accidents, hiking accidents. I couldn't even begin to, without going back through the files and counting how many cases I've done, but an awful lot of them.
All right, thank you.
Um,
Ms. Robinson,
sorry, I
over
don't
to
have
you. Sorry?
I'm sorry, I don't have a better, infinite number, but I just don't. I don't have a clue.
Understandable. All right,
And
Ms. Robinson.
Well, I want to echo what, Nick really has said. It's hard I don't keep track. I have 27 years of death investigations from a variety, from research to meeting with families. My area of expertise is meeting with families. And I've met with hundreds, if not thousands of families who've lost children suddenly and unexpectedly, whether they're juveniles or they're adults. And so they're my priority. That's, I know what it feels like when somebody doesn't do their job. So I've spent a lifetime holding investigators accountable for their jobs. We've drafted statutes that hold them accountable on scene standards. Again, going back to that magical 2025, if we're not accredited by 2025, this office will not get reimbursements from the state or from the feds like we currently do.
All right, thank you. Okay, here we are. We are to the end. Ms. Robinson, you have 60 seconds to make your closing statement.
Well, we have lots to do, especially before 2025. And the need to have leadership, expertise, and collaboration with other counties and states, and to move forward with best practices for this office is paramount. Full disclosure, I have spent probably 2 decades being a thorn in the side of the coroners. I have gone to the legislature and said that this should be a nonpartisan appointed position, that contrary to what public opinion for some might be, the dead don't vote. I'm a strong supporter that the office of the coroner should be nonpartisan, because when you die, you fail to belong to a party. And my goals and my responsibility is to the deceased and to their families.
Thank you. Mr. Henderson, you have 60 seconds to make your closing statement.
Well, I would hope that the voters would support me. I have tried to do my best. We have been very successful with grants. We have this X-ray machine that is portable that we can fit in the back of our Ford Escapes, and it is connected to a computer. We can send the images via the internet to the pathologist so he can see them within a few minutes after we've taken the X-rays. We also have a camera that's a Lyra, I think is how you pronounce it. It's an Italian camera that revolves, and it takes pictures of the scene. And when you sew that together with the computer, it makes a 3-dimensional photograph of the scene. that is got measurements in it and is accurate enough to take into court. Because once you move the body, then you've destroyed the scene, no matter how careful you are with everything else. This allows us, and we've used it already with shooting scenes and some traffic accidents, and it is an unbelievable tool. And we are the first coroner's office in the state of Washington to have one of those. And we've partnered with our local law enforcement. If they need it, it's available to them. And so I want to continue doing things like that. And
Okay,
keeping
Mr.
up, even
Henderson,
online.
we're going to have to
Yes.
leave it at that, sir.
Okay.
All right. We would like to thank Mr. Henderson and Ms. Robinson for sharing their views and their willingness to serve as county coroner. We want to thank our co-sponsors, the Ellensburg Daily Record newspaper, the Northern Kittitas County Tribune, the Kittitas County Chamber of Commerce, and the Associated Students of Central Washington University for sharing the information about these forums and these forum videos throughout this voting season. Finally, thank you to the many league volunteers who make these events possible. For more information about all the candidates running in the 2022 general election, the Kittitas League has created a nonpartisan online voters guide where you will find links to the candidates' websites and other helpful resources. You can also get information at vote411.org, the Kittitas County Auditor's Office, and at the Washington State Secretary of State's office. Remember to vote for the candidates that best represent your views. Every vote counts. Your vote matters. Join me by casting your ballot in the November 8th general election. Thank you and good night.